Before I even begin, I have to give out a massive spoiler warning. This video is pretty much going to be one big spoiler for the story of Halo Reach. Even trying to explain the premise of the video is going to spoil it. So that's your warning. If you haven't played Halo Reach yet, go and play it first before watching this video. Okay, with that out of the way, hey everyone. My name is Kelvin B. Fisher. I'm a science fiction writer, and on this channel, I like to analyze the storytelling in games. For anyone unfamiliar, Halo is a science fiction franchise that is largely responsible for popularizing first-person shooters on console. The Halo series focuses on humanity's war with the Covenant, a conglomerate of alien species unified by religious zeal. Halo Reach is the prequel to the mainline Halo trilogy, which began with Halo Combat Evolved. Halo Reach and its story are very fascinating to me, and the reason why is I think the goal it goes after is incredibly ambitious. Halo Reach is the story of the planet Reach, a human planet that falls to a surprise alien invasion. We watch the story of Noble Team unfold, in Noble Six's shoes, as each soldier heroically dies, one by one in the planet's defense. It's a tragedy in all senses of the word. So what's so impressive to me about Halo Reach's story? Well, the game is pretty short. It clocks in at 5 or 6 hours about. 5 or 6 hours is not a lot of storytelling time for most video games. The reason is that most of that time is filled with gameplay, and the story generally takes a back seat. Adding to that, all of Noble Team's members are introduced in this game, and they're also all killed off in this game. So, Halo Reach's storytelling team had to introduce a bunch of characters and kill them all off in a very short amount of time. And they somehow had to make each of the deaths feel impactful and have a resonance with the player. As a writer myself, I can't stress how daunting this task seems. There's just not much time to introduce and take out so many characters. It seems like a real challenge. The thing is, though, is that I think Halo Reach pulls it off. Each of the characters' deaths feel resonant, even if the character hasn't had that much time in the story. And that really fascinates me. I want to try and see why this works so well. So that's what we're going to explore today. Why is Halo Reach's storytelling effective? How does it make each of these characters' deaths feel meaningful? The opening of Halo Reach depicts the planet in ruins, with the shattered helmet of Noble Six. This opening is really effective, because without saying any words, it sets the stage for what Halo Reach's narrative is all about. It's about the fall of Reach, and the fall of Noble Six, and by extension, the fall of Noble Team. If you've read The Fall of Reach, you're probably aware from the get-go of what this game's about, but for people like me who haven't read any extensive lore on the Halo franchise, this opening sets the expectations about the game's story, mood, and tone in just a handful of frames. Remember what I said earlier, this game is short, and the time to tell its narrative is also short. In order to be effective, the storytelling has to be economic. After this intro, we're introduced to Noble Team. The scene is very short and to the point. A relay on the planet went offline, and the soldiers have gone MIA. Noble Team is to go out and find out what's going on. Although short, this scene is packed with details that help establish the story. A big part of effective storytelling is being able to communicate details about the plot, setting, and characters simultaneously, and this scene is great at doing that. To start, Noble Six is being introduced to the team, much like the player. This helps get the player in Noble Six's shoes, which I'll elaborate more on later. Noble Six's introduction to the team is due to the prior Noble Six dying. This sets up a lot about the team. It lets us know that Noble Team is accustomed to death. Death is an expectation of the job, not a surprise outcome. This will very much play out throughout the story. When each of the members of Noble is introduced, they're not given a ton of dialogue. However, a lot can be inferred about their personalities through their body language and character designs. Commander Carter, the leader of Noble Team, wears fairly standard-looking blue armor. He also stands up very straight and tall. This lines up with his personality. He's a very by-the-books leader, wanting to do the right job the right way. Kat puts out a hand to halt Noble Six. From this, it's clear that she's protective, but she's also untrusting, especially of outsiders. Her prosthetic also indicates that she's seen her fair share of battle and returned with scars. This also reinforces the inevitable injury and death that will come with being a Spartan. Emil is crouched over, like a predator sharpening his knife. His skull mask adds to the effect. This guy is an apex killer. George is a giant guy in bulky armor. He has his helmet off and he's in a relaxed position. He's the point of stability for the team. June is alert, keeping a watchful eye. His role as a scout is apparent. So this team introduction does a great job of building characters even outside of their dialogue. When Noble Team boards the ship, Carter tells Noble Six that they're a team,
Just one thing. I've seen your file, even the parts the Oni censors didn't want me to. I'm glad to have your skill set. But we're a team. That lone wolf stuff stays behind. Clear? Got it, sir.
This is in a lot of ways directed at the player. In the prior games, you played as Master Chief, acting as a one-man army a lot of the time. In Halo Reach, you're not a one-man army. You're a part of Noble Team. Noble lands at the location of the distress beacon and investigates. A nice way that Halo Reach uses gameplay is by giving name tags over the Noble Team's members. When you're introduced to 6 people at once, odds are you won't remember all, if any, of their names. I know I struggle with this. The name tags are a great subtle means of getting the player to know the characters' names over the course of the game. Knowing characters' names is important, because if you know their name, it makes bonding with them easier. You're going to feel worse about George dying than just the guy in green and orange. The preceding segment has a lot of build-up and suspense. In a lot of ways, this plays out more like a horror game than an action shooter. This is also an effective means of storytelling. When you feel tense or nervous about what's ahead, you're more likely to look to your allies for help. That's just a human instinct. In a sense, then, this fear binds you as a player closer to Noble 6. Noble 6 comes across humans. George speaks in Hungarian to them, acting as a translator. He's good with the civilians. This enhances the feeling of him being the source of stability for the team. Up until now, the primary conflict on Reach has been with human insurgents, and that's all Noble Team expected to find. That all changes when Noble comes into contact with the Covenant, an alien race. The Covenant have invaded the planet. Noble's goal is to establish comms and warn the rest of humanity of the Covenant threat. They fight through the Covenant forces. Along the way, Carter decides to rescue other soldiers. He won't leave a man on the field to die.
Troopers? Let's move, 6. We gotta find the source of that distress call.
No disrespect, but don't we have more important things to do than round up strays?
We don't leave people behind. You see those troopers, you let me know.
This characterizes him through action. Eventually, Noble comes across another human survivor. George tries to help the woman, but she's very feisty. From this short encounter, we learn a lot. First, we see George in his role as helper and protector. At the same time, we get to witness how the locals see the Spartans. She's fighting him just as much as the Covenant. The conflict between the Spartans and the insurgents is not pretty, and the Spartans don't have the greatest of reputations. Before Noble can do much more here, they're ambushed by elites, the higher-ranking Covenant troops. Noble fights through and clears the threat. Once the outpost is secure, Kat works to establish the comms. Meanwhile, George tries to correspond with the civilian again.
What's your name? Do you live around here? I'm George.
Shada.
Shada? Se Potteraznev. Your accent sounds familiar. Shopron?
Tangari.
Friend of yours?
Father.
Sha'ainalom. I'm sorry.
Why would you be?
Big man forgets what he is sometimes.
She just lost her father. She needs a full psychiatric workup.
She's not the only one.
Lock it down, both of you.
He's gentle, but she still doesn't respond warmly to him. Clearly, the Spartan scars run deep. Emil reinforces the woman's negative perception of the Spartans, stating that George has forgotten what he is. The what is interesting. He doesn't use who, the correct pronoun. It's like the Spartans aren't even human. Carter breaks up Emil and George. Again, he's acting as the level-headed leader. This scene is effective because it's economic. We get more characterization for Emil and George, while also learning more about the world and the conflict they find themselves in. In addition, all of this building is through action. George is speaking, sure, but his conversation with the woman isn't idle. He's trying to get more information out of her, and thus he's striving towards his mission goal. Likewise, Kat demonstrates her technical prowess through action. It's emblematic of the Spartans. These are people of action, and the primary way we learn more about them is through actions. It's very fitting. Noble is directed to the Oni sword base to defend against a Covenant attack. One thing I want to note about this mission is the color scheme. The colors are primarily blue and white. These colors emphasize a sense of calm and control. I bring this up primarily for contrast, because we'll be returning to Oni later in the game. Noble 6 and his squad mates are successful in defending the base. At the end of this mission, George puts his arm on Noble 6's shoulder. it's clear that Noble Six's prowess is earning him respect on the team. One thing to note about Noble Six is the amount he speaks throughout the game. His dialogue is tuned to just the right amount, where the character naturally fills his shoes and occupies his headspace. He isn't developed quite enough as a character for the player to really contemplate him. His personality generally falls into the background. Yet at the same time, Halo Reach avoids the pitfall that games with the silent protagonists often fall into, where another character just speaks at them like a billboard, which can be distracting and also take the player out of the game. Noble Six speaks just enough that he doesn't come across as uncanny or inhuman. It's all about immersing the player in his shoes, and in that sense, I think the game strikes this balance with Noble Six perfectly. After the mission's success, Noble speaks to Dr. Halsey, the woman behind the Spartan program. In a sense, she is responsible for creating everyone on Noble team. Here, we see Carter's by-the-book style come into contact with Dr. Halsey.
I gave the order not to pursue. Our primary objective was to get the station's relay back online.
Your primary objective? Commander, are you a puppet or a Spartan?
She also catches Kat stealing data and attempting to access it. Here, we see another contrast between her and Carter. This isn't something he would have ordered or done himself. However, immediately following, we see Carter's loyalty. When Halsey threatens Kat, Carter steps in to defend her.
I could send you to the brig for interfering with my work.
Maybe you'd like to join her.
I'm sorry?
We're currently under emergency planetary directive, winter contingency. I'm sure you're familiar with the punishment for civilian interference with the Spartan deployment.
Are you threatening me, Commander?
Just making a reading suggestion, ma'am.
In fact, he uses rules and protocol against Halsey. I really like this touch. It shows that even though Carter's by the book, he isn't a moron. He's a deft thinker. He knows how to use the rules against someone. It belies a cleverness, adaptability, and prudence that is required of a leader. This part showcases all these qualities in Carter, plus his loyalty to those under his command. This scene does a lot of lifting for Carter's character, fleshing him out and making him three-dimensional and not a lot of screen time. After the other Spartans leave, George addresses Halsey. After some hesitation, she tells him that will be all.
Mom?
That will be all, George.
There's a slight softness to her voice, however. You get the sense that they have a history. This is another way of building three-dimensionality in a character. We don't always have to know every little detail about a character. Characters having relationships with one another that we're not always privy to every detail feels very realistic. Noble Six and June deploy on a mission to assess Covenant activity. This mission is a good example of using gameplay and mission structure as a way of reinforcing character. June is a marksman, with an appreciation for firearms. He's quiet, but he's lethal. This recon mission you're on, armed with a sniper and skulking around alongside him, is a perfect fit for his character, and is a means of identifying with him past dialogue. He comments that Kat always takes a loud approach. This contrasts with him, and is another example of how to characterize through contrast. We see another example of contrast a little later with Kat.
Noble 2, we're at some sort of pump station. Got eyes on civilians. I'm thinking more local militia. They've engaged hostiles.
Move to assist. They may have intel we need.
She says to help out the civilians because they may have intel that the Spartans need. This contrasts with Carter ordering you to save people in the first mission. He did that because it was the right thing to do, morally speaking. While Kat certainly doesn't want people to die, it is clear she has a more calculating, cold view than Carter. Throughout the mission, June has a very calm presence. This is a guy whose aim doesn't waver under pressure. At the end of the mission, things take a turn for the worse. Noble Six and June discover that the invading force is actually an entire Covenant army, cloaked from human detection. There is an anxiety in June's voice. From such a calm man, it underscores how unsettling the situation is, if even he gets rattled.
Confirmed. Receiving Nova 3 and Nova 6 live visual of a Covenant strike force.
It's no strike force, it's an invading army. If we're gonna smother this thing, we need to go in hard and fast.
With the discovery of the Covenant, humanity moves to strike, hoping to hit the Covenant before they're fully ready to attack. The mission, aptly titled Tip of the Spear, sees Noble Six and Kat running point, with an army of UNSC behind them. True to June's words, your mission with Kat is loud. So this mission too uses gameplay as a means of associating with the character. Kat is a woman of decisive action. Hence, your mission with her is one of decisive action too. After taking out some AA cannons, Noble 6 joins George in a helicopter to take out the Covenant Spire. When they pass through the protective shield, however, their helicopter is disrupted and it crashes to the earth. George yells at Noble 6 to lock his armor. I really like this moment too, because it demonstrates a lot about George's character. When the plane is literally crashing down, his main concern is on someone else and making sure he is okay. It speaks to a good heart and again is an example of using actions to flesh out a character. George and Noble 6 disable the Spire's protective shield and bug out with the rest of the Noble team. A UNSC ship flies in, ready to bomb the Spire. Things don't go to plan though.
No, somebody tell me this ain't happening.
UNSC frigate Grafton. Do you copy?
Grafton is dust. We need to get out of here now.
The UNSC ship goes down. Humanity's plan is ruined. This sets an ugly precedent for what is to come. Kat comes up with an idea. It's to smuggle a slip space engine into the Covenant supercarrier. The plan is not exactly protocol. There's been some nice build-up to this moment previously. Kat's intelligence and knowledge of technology has been firmly established, as has her willingness to bend the rules. So it makes sense that she's the one to come up with this plan. When she moves to demonstrate the plan, she reaches for Emil's knife. He reaches out and instinctually covers it. It's again using body language to communicate something about a character. In this case, Emil's tendency to be untrusting and act as a lone wolf. He lets her take the knife, however, demonstrating his ultimate trust in Noble Team. Another thing to notice is who's wearing their Spartan helmet and who is not. George, whenever he can, takes off his Spartan helmet. It demonstrates how he's only a Spartan when necessary, and he prefers to be a man. At a man's level, so to speak. Emil, on the other hand, always wears his helmet. It demonstrates his embrace of being a Spartan, as it's his only life, which he alludes to earlier in the game. Carter is initially very reluctant to go along with Kat's plan, but he eventually gives in, seeing no other option. Noble grabs a hold of his spaceship. George and Noble 6 blast off into the atmosphere. An interesting detail about Halo Reach is how often in-world cameras are used. For instance, the cutscene is delivered via a ship camera. At least for me, this created an interesting effect. By the use of an in-world camera, it puts a level of separation between you as the player and the game, because you're viewing it through this in-world object. As a result, you feel like this footage is being captured, not only for you to see. It feels like it's creating a record of evidence that will be uncovered years later on the Ruins of Reach. You're, in a sense, witnessing a time capsule's events happening in real time, and watching this evidence being created. So for me at least, it adds to this somber feeling whenever these camera angles were used. Maybe this is all just me, but that was my interpretation at least. Noble 6 and George reach space, and it's one of the most breathtaking segments of the game. In orbit, you look down on the planet of Reach, and the planet is grandiose. It has a demoralizing effect. It makes you realize just how small Noble Team is, in light of an entire planet. You get this feeling that no matter what you do, the fate of this planet isn't something you have control over. Noble 6 and George battle off a Covenant attack. When they dock, there's a really powerful scene with George. As the planet of Reach is bombarded, the AI alerts him that his pulse is elevated.
Max Sabadok Siba.
Noble 5, please repeat.
Pull up surface grid 19 by 22.
Gladly. Only sword base, sector 18G.
Thermal enhance.
Noble 5, your pulse is elevated. There is nothing you can do for Dr. Halsey and the others inside Sword Base. The mathematics are determinate. Noble 5?
I know.
Without having to use many words, it's made evident how deeply George cares about his friends below and the planet of Reach. It's a moment of showing rather than telling. Noble 6 and George fight through the Covenant supercarrier to plant the drive. When it comes time to detonate, though, there's a problem.
Distance is closing on this vessel's refueling track with the Covenant supercarrier. 76 seconds to enter point.
So, it's gonna be like that. Well, I got good news and bad news. This bird took some fire and our thruster gimbal is toast, which means the only way off this slag heap is gravity.
And the good news?
That was the good news.
At current velocity, 53 seconds to end point.
Yeah. Bad news is, time is fried. I'm gonna have to fire it manually.
That's a one-way trip.
We all make it sooner or later. Better get going, Six. They're gonna need you down there. Listen, Reach has been good to me. Time has come to return the favor. Don't deny me this. Tell him to make it count.
I think George's death works really well for a handful of reasons. First is the attention to detail. When George realizes that he'll die, the first thing he does is take off his Spartan helmet and toss it to the ground. It's a shoe that never fit him quite right, so to speak. And he wants to die as George, not a Spartan. Secondly, his death isn't belabored. George knows what his duty is, and he's willing to perform it. He sees it as a gift that he wants to give to those he loves. There is something about a man simply doing his duty that is noble, and it comes across as very authentic, and not like the game is trying to force a reaction out of the player that isn't warranted. We'll see this as a theme with the other characters. Third, George's dialogue works really well. When he says, "Reach has been good to me," you know that there are words upon words that underlie that sentence, and stories upon stories. Small touches of dialogue like this that remind us that we don't know all of George's story, just a glimpse of it, really serve to flesh out his character and make him three-dimensional. It's like casting shadows around a box in a painting. The shadows are light touches, but they make all the difference in making it feel real. There's more to this man than we'll ever get the opportunity to know. We'll never really learn what he means by Reach being good to him. And there's a tragedy in that too. The mission ends with Noble Six plummeting to the earth. The supercarrier explodes, but we get this scene from an in-world camera. Again, it creates this documentary-like effect. The supercarrier may be destroyed, but the planet is not yet saved. What? It's already time to shill my book? Shoot, I better get going then. I don't want to be late. So for first-time viewers, I'm a science fiction writer along with doing this YouTube thing. I have a post-apocalyptic series, the Northfield Saga. The first 2 books are out now, and I'm really proud of them. They've received some accolades at book contests, if you don't want to take my word for it. This series centers on Mark Northfield, a man who struggles with the gray morality that is inevitable in a post-apocalyptic world. He tries to be the best man he can, but the world refuses to let him. His humble life takes on greater significance than he could have ever imagined, as the target he's meant to kill ends up being the one man that can save the world. It's a character-focused story with lots of world building and fast-moving action. The books are quick reads, perfect for an airplane ride or during breaks from playing Halo. If that sounds interesting to you, please check out the series. It's the best way you can support me here. There's a link in my video description, which then has links to the books as well as my personal website. Thanks for listening. With that, we'll get back to Halo. After the supercarrier explosion, Noble Six crash lands on the planet. He is alone and cut off from his squad mates. He limps over and picks up a pistol. The camera shot is from a soldier's helmet. Again, the in-world use of cameras makes it feel like we're watching this fossil from the past. Noble Six reaches the outskirts of New Alexandria. The city is poised to fall. George's sacrifice, while noble, wasn't enough to stop the Covenant. There's a real tragedy in that. Noble Six teams up with normal Marines, and he assists in the evacuation effort of the city. Marines join her squad, and they're a great contrast both gameplay and narrative-wise from the Spartans of Noble team. The Marines, unlike the Spartans, can die during gameplay segments. In fact, they can die pretty quickly. You can enter a fight with 5 Marines at your side, and within a handful of seconds, you're the only one remaining. This reinforces the narrative that Spartans are super warriors compared to normal soldiers. We saw how devastating the war has been so far for the Spartans. Now, we see how it is even more devastating for the normal infantry. Soldiers joining your side and then falling in the line of combat is a reflection of the greater conflict in New Alexandria. The skirmishes you experience with the Marines is happening everywhere, hence the evacuation of the city. As a result, this section also highlights the heroism of the normal Marines. They aren't as strong as the Spartans, yet they fight just as valiantly to protect the planet. So, I think this mission is really important in giving a ground-level view of the war. After Noble Six helps with the evacuation, he manages to connect with Kat, and he tells her that George has died.
Copy. Repeat, this is Noble 2, Noble 6, Noble 5, do you copy?
This is 6. Go ahead, Noble 2.
We picked up your transponder about an hour ago, but could not risk open comms. Covenant have the city sealed tight. We're getting nothing from George.
He didn't make it.
Understood. What's the situation at Starport exit?
The last transport is away.
All right. We're bringing you to us.
She says something in the morning, but quickly moves back to the mission. The short reaction reflects a few things. First, it underscores how desperate the situation on Reach is. They don't have time to mourn comrades right now. Second, she isn't surprised. This is a reminder that death is common for Spartans. Noble 6 is only here because the prior Noble 6 died, after all. Her reaction in that sense feels authentic. There isn't an overextensive mourning to draw a reaction out of the player. That authenticity to Kat and who the Spartans are is what makes this reaction work. Noble 6 doesn't get to rest. He's onward to his next mission, to get the jammed comm systems back online. This mission has the best atmosphere and mood out of any mission in the game. In fact, it is one of the most atmospheric levels I've played. The skyline of New Alexandria is as beautiful as it is tragic. It looks like the entire planet has gone up in flames. What are you, a single man, possibly able to do about it? The music is somber too, and it really adds to the mood. These elements add to why Reach's story works so well. The atmosphere and mood help you believe in the world. When you're immersed in the world, you relate to the characters more. Noble 6 meets with Carter, and Carter gives him the debrief.
Your report will have to wait, Lieutenant. The Covenant are jamming all comms to command. Kat needs your help running a counter-op. It's good to have you back. Sorry I came alone. Make him proud.
Their exchange about George, like with Kat, is short and sweet. His make him proud line feels very authentic to Carter. As a good leader, you can tell he cares about his men, but he has a mission to accomplish too. Noble 6 pilots his ship and embarks on his mission. Like the mission in orbit, this mission gives you a great sense of scale. The prior mission gave you a close-up view of the conflict, and while this mission zooms out that camera and lets you know how the whole war is going. Death beams rain from the sky. The very sky rumbles, poised to break. Yeah, it's not going very well. At the end of the mission, Kat compliments Noble 6 for his prowess.
Noble 6, you are one steely-eyed Spartan. I'm extending the landing pad now. Come home, Lieutenant.
Since she's such a closed-in person, this compliment really says a lot about how she's come to trust him as a member of the team. Noble 6 reconvenes, and it gets a rare moment of silence. More team members reflect on the loss of George. These work again for the same reason as Kat's. They're brief, and true to the characters, authenticity shines through. An explosion erupts. The Covenant have detonated a bomb. Noble heads underground for cover. Before the Spartans can scarcely breathe, another tragedy strikes.
It hasn't already.
Maybe, but according to Holland, the Covenant are still hunting for something.
Where does he get off calling a demolition a priority one?
Kat is killed by an elite sniper. She's dead before you fully realize what's happened. This death works so well because it's shocking. After the team just spent time reflecting on George's death, you're not expecting another member of Noble team to fall so quickly. Her death too contrasts with George's. His death was large-scale, noble, and cinematic. Kat doesn't get the same send-off. If every character got a send-off like George, the game would feel contrived, and the player would get a sense for when the characters were about to die. Kat's demise is a shock to the system, a dose of reality about the war for the Spartans. George died, but he chose to sacrifice himself. Kat got unlucky, finding the bad end of her rifle. It completely puts the player on edge for the rest of the game, as Kat's death has opened the possibility for any character to die at a moment's notice. The sadness of Kat's death is amplified by the suddenness. She doesn't get any goodbyes or last words. It's just over. Nonetheless, Noble Team's fight for the planet continues. They return to Sword Base for a torch and burn op. Destroy everything so the Covenant can't get their hands on it. The Sword Base in this mission greatly contrasts with the Sword Base from the third level. Instead of the calming blue and gray color scheme, browns and fiery reds now dominate the landscape. The hellish backdraft creates a hellish atmosphere, emphasized by the swarm of Covenant ships that blot the sky. The atmosphere really makes you buy into the feeling that this is the end of the planet. The believability of Halo Reach's world and its ability to immerse you again go hand in hand with your ability to buy into the characters. Upon entering Sword Base, the Spartans realize the coordinates they were given to destroy the base were incorrect. They receive a new set of coordinates. This set lay deep underground. The situation is bizarre, but Noble Team presses on. They enter a waiting tram car, and Halsey contacts them. It turns out that the torch and burn op was just a cover story. Noble's true mission is to retrieve and safeguard a package. True to character, Carter's hesitant to unstick from his orders, but Halsey presses him.
It may please you to learn that the data module Noble 2 procured from Visegrad Station contained precisely what my scientist promised. A latchkey discovery. It has unlocked, at last, the secrets of this excavation.
Not sure I understand.
Your orders were a pretext to bring you to me and have been overridden. You are here, Team Noble, to ensure the delivery of this vital data to a secure location.
Doctor, our orders are to destroy all sensitive material.
Others will handle the demolition.
I'll need to confirm this new directive with command.
Colonel Holland will be briefed. We belong to Oni now.
Her data is humanity's best chance for survival. Noble Team must defend Halsey from the approaching Covenant while she retrieves the data. What I found interesting about this objective is that it contrasts against most of Noble's objectives up until this point. Generally, Noble Team is the one striking first, whether it be a recon mission or attacking areas that the Covenant have occupied. This objective, in contrast, has the Spartans standing their ground for a prolonged period, as the Covenant close in on them. You feel like the Spartans are on their back feet, prey this time instead of the apex predators. The gameplay and the feelings it gives the player line up well with the story. Humanity is on its back foot as well, losing the war against the Covenant. Everyone is growing more desperate as this situation declines. This goes too into making the character buy more into the story and world, which then makes them buy more into the characters. When the coast is clear, and Halsey has retrieved her data, the Spartans enter the base. The package is an artificial intelligence that the Spartans are to deliver off-planet. And while Halsey hands the package to Noble 6, she makes him say the words, "I have it."
Take it, Lieutenant. She has made her choice. Do you have it?
Yes.
Say the words, please.
I have it.
This moment is really powerful because of Halsey's personality. She's a very cold woman, to put it nicely, and seems just about unfazed by everything. The fact that she wants an assurance like this, and to receive some measure of comfort, underscores just how desperate the situation on Reach is, and also how valuable this AI is. The last main mission of the game instills dread in the player immediately. Dot alerts Carter that he needs to get immediate medical attention. The suddenness of this instantly draws memories of Kat, and how suddenly she died. Will the same happen to Carter? Carter is still standing though, for now, but the window is covered in blood. You feel certain that this is the last time you'll ever see Carter. He drops Noble 6 and Emil off. They're responsible for delivering the capsule to the escape ship. They fight through fierce Covenant opposition, but they reach an impasse when a scarab blocks their way. Carter uses the remains of his ship to ram into the scarab, sacrificing himself so the remains of Noble can continue.
We can get past this, sir.
No, you can't. Not without help.
Commander, you don't have the firepower.
I've got the map.
Solid copy. Hit 'em hard, boss.
You're on your own, Noble. Carter out.
Carter's words feel very authentic. They're very rigid and standard, and he says all that he needs to say for the mission. Going back to the pattern, this death works because you experience Carter's heroism, but it comes from an earnest and sincere place. He doesn't dwell on what needs to be done. He sees the need and does it. Noble 6 and Emil continue on. Noble 6 reaches the landing zone. He needs to hold the position until the ship arrives. This is another example of Noble having to defend a location while a horde of enemies close in. It again enforces this feeling of being on the back foot in contrast to your enemies, who have gained the upper hand in the war. It doesn't really even feel like a war anymore. It feels like a fight for survival. Noble successfully holds off the enemy forces, and the ship lands. Noble 6 hands the AI to Captain Keyes, and he is about to board the ship. Emil fights off elites, but one stabs him in the back.
Who's next? I'm ready! How about you?
Lieutenant, get aboard! We gotta get the hell out of here!
Negative. I have the gun. Good luck, sir.
Good luck to you, Spartan.
His death is viewed from a faraway angle. It induces this sense of helplessness, reinforcing the feeling that you can't do anything to prevent it. Emil's death is quick, but he dies fighting. For a man like Emil, it is the perfect end. With nobody to man the anti-air cannons, Keyes' ship can't escape. Noble 6 stays behind to man the cannon, sealing his fate. 6 makes this decision without hesitation. It follows with the strong, understated heroism that the entirety of Noble Team has demonstrated throughout the game. 6 defends Captain Keyes' ship as it escapes, and Noble 6 is left alone on the planet. In an epilogue cutscene, Keyes speaks to the AI Cortana. Her contributions have allowed humanity to find the Halo Ring, leading to the events of Halo 1 Combat Evolved. So, this cutscene demonstrates that although Noble Team has failed to save Reach, in the end, Noble Team helped to save humanity. It's a bittersweet end, which is fitting for a bittersweet game. The game isn't quite over yet, though. There's an epilogue mission, Lone Wolf. Noble 6 is alone, with the Covenant closing in. He fights against the Covenant. His helmet gets progressively shattered as the battle rages on. Whether the player loses all his health, or the player reaches an endpoint, Noble 6 dies. There aren't any final words. Noble 6's death is communicated through gameplay. You experience his final battle fighting alongside him. You feel his desperation as the Covenant continuously hound him. The ending is not overly melodramatic. There's a quietness and somberness to it. The game communicates what it needs to, but it doesn't feel the need to wring out every drop of empathy it can from the player. So, Noble 6's death follows the same pattern as his comrades. Halo Reach and his deaths work so well because they are earnest. The game forgoes melodrama for authenticity. It's an authenticity built up by short and sweet character moments, world building via art design and sound, and through gameplay. Halo Reach uses every tool at its disposal to tell the story of Reach's fall and the heroic demise of Noble Team. Since Halo Reach is such a short game, it is a testament to the developer's skill that the game's story managed to have such an impact. Halo Reach is a great example of a game that knows exactly what story it wants to tell, and how to tell that story. The game cuts out all the fat and leaves only what really matters, the game's heart, bare for the player to experience. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, please consider liking, subscribing, or checking out my Northfield series. This is Calvin B. Fisher, and I'll see you next time.